the first thing is this idea of the visitability concept. So, how easy is it to get into the home?
Hello, and welcome to Forever Home for Our Kids with Disabilities. I'm Valerie, mum to two with disabilities, one visible, one invisible. I'm a life coach and an author. This space has been created to help you navigate the journey of creating a secure, sustainable forever home for your child. We'll chat with parents on this path, realtors, financial planners, and other experts who can make the process easier. Why am I so passionate about this? Because seeing my eldest thrive living independent of us was a gift I didn't always know I could give. I want you to have the opportunity to explore giving that gift to your child. Welcome to this week's episode of Forever Home for Our Kids with Disabilities. I am so glad you're here. And I just want to say I'm so grateful that you do listen in. And I'm even more grateful that you share the episodes with people you know will get benefit and also some education around what might be helpful for them as they navigate trying to have a forever home set up for their child with a disability. So today, I have a lovely guest. His name is Ron Wickman. He is an architect, an author, and an activist who specializes in accessible architecture. He set up his own Edmonton-based practice in 1995, and he specializes in providing consulting services for persons with disabilities and for projects focused on affording individuals with disabilities greater choices for independent movement. Ron is also committed to providing affordable, accessible, adaptable, and healthy housing. Ron has written many articles, plus two books on accessible design. He has been a guest speaker and a participant in numerous sessions involving accessibility, innovative housing, urban and community planning. Welcome, Ron.
Thanks. Great to be here.
We're so glad to have you here. All right. So, Ron, please share with us how you became part of the Persons with Disabilities world.
Yeah, it actually goes all the way back to when I was born. I'll make it a short story. I was only a few months old when my father was injured in a work-related accident that
Mm.
rendered him a paraplegic. So in 1964, he was 23 himself. And basically, times were much different than they are today. He was basically told that he would live in an institution, getting schooling, working, all that kind of stuff would be kind of non-existent for him. Probably not live past 50. So yeah, kind of a bleak
Mm.
interpretation of that injury. So I grew up around my father who used a manual wheelchair. Again, everybody in those days had the exact same wheelchair. So there, there was only one style, which I guess quite different today. And I guess for me at the time, I didn't think of it as unusual. That was
Mhm.
just he was my dad, and this is how we got around. But as I started entering into my teens and we started traveling around, you start to see how accessibility for us was always quite different. And we would often have to enter a restaurant, let's say from the back entrance, go through sort of where they dropped off the garbage and then meet the
Okay.
cooks and the dishwashers and make our way in that way. And over again, these sorts of experiences allowed me to figure out that something wasn't right. My father could have done anything for a living, although, again, he was told that there wasn't much he could do. So, bit stubborn he was, and very forward thinking. He entered into advocacy himself. So, he ended up going back to school, was in university, got involved in student politics at the University of Alberta. That led to getting more active in the community. Eventually, he started running for city council in Edmonton, got elected, and spent 9 years as a city councillor. So the first person with a disability that was
Hmm.
on city council. Retired from that and then continued to be an advocate. And eventually, a few years later, he decided to run provincially. At that time in the late 80s, the Liberal Party was a thing in Alberta, and he ran as a Liberal candidate and actually beat the premier of our province at that time, Don Getty,
Wow.
and became a Liberal MLA. And he spent 12 years in the Alberta legislature. And so I not only grew up kind of witnessing for myself my personal lived experience,
Hmm.
what it was like to navigate the environment, the built environment from the perspective of being in a wheelchair. I was constantly reminded by my father and others in the advocacy world that this isn't right. And this is something
Hmm.
that we need to do and create change. And seeing how hard it was to be a politician,
Yeah.
I decided not to completely follow in my father's pathway. And I thought architecture might be an interesting and relevant way to make a difference. It was in the 70s, I remember the introduction of the curb ramp in Edmonton and my dad being asked, like, what do you think of this? And, in those days, he would actually get his front wheels up on the curb and then he'd grab onto a parking meter
Oh.
and pull himself up. That's somebody, if you're young and strong and you
Hmm.
can do that, that's fine. But if you're in a power wheelchair, that's not going to happen, right? And so the curb ramp is a great example of, I guess, what we'd call a universal design solution, where its origin started with really the power wheelchair getting up onto the sidewalk. And from there, now I would venture to guess that those people building and pouring the concrete for the curb ramps don't
Right.
even know why they're there. They just assume that they're there for people who use baby carriages or bikes or other mobility devices. They wouldn't even know the origins of it. But like so many things, a lot of the benefits have come out of the desire to make things easier for people with disabilities.
Yeah, love that. Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing,
Hmm.
Ron. That's amazing. And just the fact that that has been your life, all of your life, disability, you've just been around it the whole time. You did mention with the curbs, we never noticed curbs really until we had a child with a disability, until we started
Mm,
parenting. So even having a child with a disability, just the fact that she was in it was called a kid cart. So it looked like a stroller, but it was kind of like a cross between a stroller and a wheelchair, but a little higher up.
right. Mhm.
And so that's when I started to realize, oh, right, yeah, so where do we go? So I can't imagine for all those people that pushed prams and strollers and all that kind of stuff years before, what did they do? Right? And it's
Yeah.
only because somebody in a power wheelchair wants to be able to get up on a curb that things
Hmm.
changed. So I'm so glad that they did. But I don't know, you're probably the same. When I go anywhere now, I'm scanning to see where's the accessibility here. How do I get in? How do I
Yeah.
get out? How do I navigate getting around? So that's something that I'm very much aware of now that we've had Melody Ann who uses a wheelchair.
Yeah, and it really comes down to that personal life experience that really makes you aware of the
Hmm.
issues. That's really what I've spent I guess I just finished my 30th year in my practice.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. And that's really been my mission is to change the culture so that the curb ramp and other features in home design, for example, just become commonplace, that they're the norm, not the
Yeah,
unusual. So we just used to using them because it just makes sense and it's easier for everybody.
yeah.
And it's not this kind of specialized feature that just helps a small number of people, right?
Right. And we will get into that. So, the
Yeah.
term accessible design is used widely, but often inconsistently. So, how do you define accessible design? And how does your definition go beyond the minimum code compliance?
Yeah, that's a podcast in itself. But in a nutshell, accessible design is very much disability focused. So it is really up to the designer and the person interpreting accessible design to really understand what disability is all about. And that's not just people in wheelchairs, but that's certainly where it started.
Mhm.
But every kind of disability that you can think of. And the other terms that people might have heard of is universal design is
Yeah.
one, and inclusive design
Hmm.
is the other. Inclusive design tends to be used across the world in Asia and
Okay.
Europe. Universal design is very much something that started in the United States,
Oh,
which is more of a North American thing. And the universal design term, which is more commonplace, I guess, here in Canada, because we often are influenced by what happens in the US, it was started in 1986 by an architect, Ron Mace, who used a wheelchair. And he really wanted to steer the focus away from disability focused and more to this idea that, what we're promoting is something that benefits everybody.
yes.
And so 1986, now it's 2026. I think certainly from my point of view and some others, I think our desire, especially in the design world, our desire to achieve this idea of universal design has steered us a little bit in a different direction,
Okay.
certainly than disability focus. So now we're just trying to find that sweet spot that sort of satisfies everybody,
Yeah.
but in some respects satisfies nobody. So I'm happy to use the term universal or
Mhm.
inclusive or accessible. To me, they all mean the same thing.
Okay.
And I don't like to get too hung up on, what
Right.
word is the better one to use. But certainly, again, in the design world, if you look at universal design, you'll just try to find something that, might meet code and just kind of satisfy what the books are telling you or what other experts are telling you. But you're not really as a person, you're not delving into the real lives of people with disabilities. And that's what I've done. I try to experience the best I can what it's like to be, have a visual limitation or
Mhm.
be hard of hearing or be in a wheelchair. I grew up around that, so it's a little easier for me sometimes. But, what I also found out is that there is no real universal solution, especially
Mm.
when we start getting into talking about neurodivergency and so on. So you cannot make a home universal in a
Right.
sense because everybody's different and everybody has different needs. So having said that, there are some features that have a more universal impact, like, again, back to the curb cut, right?
Yeah.
Or curb ramp. So I spend a lot of time trying to figure out what those features are that would help people appreciate that, yeah, these things will just make it easier for everybody. And then we can go in and really detail our home for our individual family.
Right.
Yeah. The other couple of terms that people might be aware of is barrier-free design. And barrier-free is something that is part of our National Building Code.
Okay.
And that's really talking about removing barriers to accessibility. So that is very much disability focused. And unfortunately, it's very focused on people who use wheelchairs. So we need to really get out of that. And in fact, the Alberta Building Code, we just changed that through the Safety Codes Council. We changed our name from the Barrier Free Design Committee to the Accessibility Design Committee.
Okay.
So we had a long conversation about should we say accessibility, universal, inclusive, and the consensus was, and there was some great discussion about it, was accessibility is probably the best term to use.
Right.
The other term that really relates to housing is something we call visitability,
Oh,
visitability.
okay.
And that also was started in the 80s by Eleanor Smith in Atlanta, Georgia, who used a wheelchair. And she realized she couldn't visit her friends because
Mm.
the house had steps.
Yeah.
And this is actually kind of a good segue into talking about some of the key features. So I'll
Yeah.
just mention a couple of them. And visitability is really these key features, which really just makes life better for everybody. And
Hmm.
Eleanor Smith is quoted as saying, a no-step entrance to a home benefits so many people and hurts no one.
Right.
If you're carrying a small baby or trying to get a baby stroller up into your
Hmm.
entrance, those are just dangerous situations, especially where we live in Canada, where we often have icy conditions, right? So this idea of having entrances to our homes without steps, it just seems like a no-brainer to me.
I hear you.
Um, the second element to visitability is just having doorways wide enough to get through, which has just become the norm. Like that
Yeah.
is one of the things that has become the norm.
Yes.
And largely in part because people just have bigger TVs and furniture and so on. And then thirdly, having a bathroom that can at least accommodate somebody in a wheelchair, let's say, to be able to visit. So the home may not be accessible to live in and sleep in
Hmm.
and use the kitchen in, but at least somebody can come and visit you, which
Yes.
is so incredibly important, especially in our day and age when we have such a large population of people who are seniors and
Hmm.
really need to get out and socialize and visit. Stairs
Yeah.
can be a real detriment to all of that.
Yeah.
So Eleanor was really progressive in her thinking in the 1980s. My own personal experience with that was my first book, which is just a small children's book,
Mm.
was based on our experience of renovating our own home.
Okay.
We did quite a massive renovation. We added a second story to our bungalow.
Hmm.
But part of that was just to make sure we poured our driveway and sidewalk to our door without steps. And
Mm.
so the children's book is just based on that story of how I recognized that my father, who used a wheelchair, would go out and get treats for my three kids every Saturday, but he would phone from his van and they would run out and grab their treats and then run back in the house. And that was the
Hmm.
extent of his visit. So
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
book really tells the story of how we did this renovation. Then he could get out of his van and just wheel up to the door and come in, and then he could actually watch the kids play with the toys that he got them and treats that he got them and all that was very significant.
No, it's just creating that awareness with the younger people, and it's good to start them young to be aware because they are going to be the generation that are going to continue
Absolutely.
making the
Yeah.
change, right?
Yeah.
And we want to
Absolutely.
normalize it. I remember when I had Melody Ann, and one of the caregivers that we had, she made a comment, which was lovely, but she said, you do so well getting your kids out, more so than other families that I know that have typical kids that don't get their kids out and about. And so just creating that awareness and normalizing, yeah, it's okay to be in a wheelchair and it's okay to not be able to speak to someone, but they can still understand you. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I love that you kind of targeted the children and you did
Hmm.
to create awareness for them. So that's great. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I love the term
Hmm.
visitability. Like, I love that that is becoming a thing because I've worked in the geriatric population as a physical therapist for many years. And I just could not get over how many steps some people would have to climb to get in and out of
Yeah.
their home.
Yeah.
And then as they get older, because they're trying to age in place, they don't leave their home because they
Yeah.
can't get in and out. And it's just so sad to see. So because we've had Melody Ann, we now live in bungalows. We don't even worry about two-story homes. And just making sure that there's a way to get our child in and out when she comes to visit us, because she now is in her forever home,
Yeah.
um, which was built with steps, but there was a ramp inside the garage when we bought that house. But we've actually since put in a porch lift on
Right.
the front and the back, and then we also have a ramp at the side of the house as well. So,
This is a good time for me to mention with the forever home concept. This is something that your listeners should really take note of. People contact me and ask me, we want to look for a home that would be easy to modify, or
mm,
what should we be looking for to make our homes easier to modify as opposed to building new? And it really does come down to three key things. The first thing is this idea of the visitability concept. So, how easy is it to get into the home? A home without steps at the front door is critical. When I drive to a home and I just look at it from the outside, the relationship of the ground to the front door is what I look at. So if I see, 4 feet or something,
mhm,
then I know, well, we're talking about some kind of porch lift or some
yeah,
kind of ramp. And if I drive out to a house and it's a bi-level or split level, we're not going to try to renovate those. So just
mhm.
don't even entertain that idea.
Okay.
Right away, I can look at a home and get a good sense of, is this going to be easy or hard? Just by that
Hmm.
relationship of the ground to the front door.
Hmm.
And then secondly, once I'm inside,
Yeah.
I would look at, even with a bungalow, it would be nice to be able to access the basement if you could in a wheelchair. So I look at how easy it might be to add a lift to the stairs, for
Right.
example, or is there space to add an elevator, some kind of vertical lift inside?
Hmm.
Of course, that becomes a bit of an expense
Right.
there, the elevator. But that idea of vertical circulation is something that is the second key feature that I look at. And then thirdly, and maybe most importantly, is the bathroom. So
Yes.
a lot of old homes made bathrooms that were just big enough for somebody, standing. To renovate a bathroom sometimes means tearing down walls, and often I've turned a three-bedroom bungalow into a two-bedroom bungalow. and that all has expense to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you're building a new house, also, if you just have those three things addressed,
Hmm.
everything else will kind of follow. Um,
Yeah.
but and if those three things became the norm in our new home building industry, that would be the first place you'd start is to, address these three issues.
Yeah.
Um, then our futures would be so much better and easier, to
Absolutely.
modify. And that's not just in single family housing. That's multifamily housing, all
Hmm.
kinds of dwelling types, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
and of course, when it comes to affordable housing, then that's another issue too. That becomes a little bit tricky.
Yeah.
But that is really important. And the aging population has really changed the game. In the United States, I don't know what it is, something like 70 million people now or more are over 65 in the United States.
Wow.
So, that's almost twice the population of Canada.
Hmm.
So there's a big market for it as well, right?
Absolutely.
And what you see coming out of that is much nicer, more aesthetically pleasing
Hmm.
products out there too,
Yes.
grab bars, all kinds of other features. Because at the end of the day, that's really the biggest stumbling block in all of this is often not cost, is this perception that accessible housing is ugly, right? And
Right.
we
And it
really
doesn't have
have
to
to,
be.
no, no, not at all. And it can be whatever you want it to be,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And again, when you look at the no step entrance, I don't know how you can say steps look nicer than not having steps. Like I don't know the difference. Certainly people don't notice the difference of my house.
Hmm. Hmm.
Except I have to tell you, there was one story where a gentleman picked up a couch we were selling
Hmm.
and, came in the house and he grabbed the one end of the couch and I was helping him carry it out. He got through the door and outside and he started backing up. And then with his foot, I could see he was reaching for the steps. And I go, there's no step. And he goes, oh, really? I go, yeah, didn't you notice when you came in? He goes, I didn't notice. I didn't even think about it. And he was like, this is amazing. How, like, everybody should do this. And I go, hey, I
Right.
know, you're right. So, again, it wasn't somebody in a wheelchair saying that. It was somebody like moving a piece of furniture. So you do see the benefits of that, right? But
Hmm.
it's really invisible. Again, with the bathroom that I promote is what I would call a wet room. And essentially, it's just a waterproof room. So it's
Mm.
instead of having a shower stall or certainly like a bathtub with the shower in the bathtub. It's just an open area that has the drain in the floor and essentially the floor just slopes to the drain.
Yeah.
And you could have a glass wall with a door in it or a curtain, but it really is just a waterproof room. And I guess, even as I'm explaining it to you, it's maybe hard to visualize if you've never seen one before,
Hmm.
but it just makes life so much easier, even for cleaning the bathroom. It's so
Hmm.
much easier. You can stand in it if you want. You got
Yeah.
like elbow room to move around. If you needed to have like a little bench, you could sit, or if you had to wheel in, you could shower right from your wheelchair. My father didn't have a lot of choices in his day when he first got hurt. So he just got used to transferring into a bathtub.
Hmm.
And as he got close to 60, he just couldn't do it anymore. He couldn't transfer from his wheelchair into the bathtub and especially get back out
Back
of the
out.
bathtub into his wheelchair. Finally, his shoulders just kind of gave out on him and he just couldn't do the bathtub anymore. So we did a small addition to the bathroom where we had the shower area and he just wasn't sure about it. He had
Mm.
never experienced it and he's, I'm not sure about this. And we put a like a flip down bench in the bathroom so that he
Hmm.
could transfer from his wheelchair because he wasn't quite sure.
Hmm.
And then, everything got built and the first time he had a shower, he just for whatever reason he decided not to transfer. He just showered from his wheelchair. And then the next time I saw him, he's like, "Yeah, I had a shower." And he goes, "I don't know why I wasn't doing this like right from the very beginning." Like he
Right.
goes, "I probably wouldn't have bad shoulders now, right?" So somehow getting it out there that this is just good design. It's not accessible
Absolutely.
design, it's just good
Good
design.
design. We have at Melody Ann's place, Her Forever Home, people that previously owned the home were very thoughtful in how they designed the home. So Melody Ann has this amazing bathroom that is massive, and she has a roll-in shower, like a wet room. And so we have glass blocks that kind of come around the corner of it, so
Right.
it just kind of blocks it off a little bit. But she just rolls in, she goes from the toilet on her commode, and then she just wheels right into the
Yeah.
shower to have her
Yeah.
shower.
Yeah.
And it just makes it so much easier. And as the for the cleaning, totally. Like I'm not there with her now because she's in a forever home, but the staff that are there makes it so much easier. There is a great big tub because I guess the lady of the house liked to have a tub, but there's ceiling track in there that they could have lowered her into the tub, but Melody
Mhm.
Ann doesn't use that.
Right.
But we have so appreciated that roll-in shower, the height of the toilet, and the other thing that's really been beneficial is the height of the counters. And the fact
Right.
that they have been open so we can store things easily in there and we can see what's there. So yeah, they were really thoughtful with the design. And she's got glass block window, she's got skylight in there.
Mm.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
as you were sharing that story too, it got me thinking about the fact that parents of children with disabilities want to stay active in their lives as long as possible. And
Mhm.
I've been around doing this work long enough that I do talk to a lot of parents that are aging themselves, and they're like,
Yeah.
their biggest concern is what happens if I'm not around or if I can't take care of my child
Mhm.
anymore. And, I'm talking about an adult child now, but still.
Yes.
And so, again, all of this accessibility and these features really allow us to stay engaged with our family members as long as possible. I don't know how to put a price tag on that. It's convincing the industry and our
Yes.
decision makers that we should do this, right? And
Yeah.
our governments, they have the power to influence the industry the most.
Mm. Whether it be government moving things forward or whoever needs to move this forward, it has been really encouraging to see more toilets that are higher. When I first came to Canada, because I'm from England, seriously, I thought everybody must be midgets because the toilets were so low. It's like, what is this?
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
so I'm glad to see that that's happening. I'm also glad to see that bathrooms are a little bit bigger. I think there's still a lot more work to do. Our house that I'm currently living in here now with my husband and our younger child was built in 94. And the bathroom is so tiny in
yeah,
comparison to the bedroom. The bedroom is massive. I'm thinking all I'm doing in here is sleeping and storing my clothes.
yeah.
I need to be able to move in my bathroom. Like it's difficult for Scott and I to be in there at the same time. I can't imagine trying to get a walker in there
Hmm.
or a wheelchair or a commode in there. So we are actually looking to renovate our bathroom, but I just wish the builders at the time had thought this through, took off a lot of space out of the bedroom and made more space for the bathroom and made it more
Yeah.
accessible. So,
That's a great point. That's a really great point.
all right. So, from your experience, what design choices or planning decisions most effectively balance true accessibility with affordability?
I think your last comment is a great one, is that better preparation and better planning in the beginning. So we do rely a lot on the home building industry to develop our homes. And yeah, I scratch my head too about seeing these homes where the bedroom is massive and then the bathroom's tiny. Just give the bathroom like 2 more feet and it's not even going to affect the bedroom. And so, again, it's that kind of attitudinal shift in the market needs to be there.
Where can our audience go to find out more about you?
I guess the easiest way is to just Google Ron Wickman Architect, and my website is there.
Well, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
So, Ron, thank you so
Mhm.
much for being here.
Oh, you're
Do
welcome.
you have a quick word of encouragement for our audience that are listening?
My only advice is just, I know it's hard, but try to really enjoy this time because you can get so stressed out about everything. The life is very complicated, but often I think we make it more complicated than it needs to be. And I'm very guilty of that myself. And so now I look back and I go, wow, I really stressed about a lot of stuff that I didn't need to. Just do the best you can to be curious and make yourself aware of this great world that's out there.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Ron. It's been a
Hmm.
pleasure chatting with you. And I just want to say to our audience that Ron will be coming back because Ron has a special interest also in working with housing for our neurodivergent population. So that will be the topic of our next conversation. So thank you so much, Ron. We so appreciate you being here.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
And audience, I want to remind you, live with intention, embrace the journey. Thanks for joining me today on Forever Home for our kids with disabilities. I hope today's episode gave you something new to think about and it increased your confidence on your journey. If you found this episode helpful, do tell others about it. Use the text feature to let me know your questions. Tell me what you want to know. Until next time, take care and keep building your child's future.